Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Depends on what time you see this. Okay, my name's Jim. I'm just going to want to talk to you, really, basically, about socialism and capitalism from a very, very, very working class point of view, from a perspective of poverty, really. The reason I'm doing this, actually, is because I meet a lot of middle class people, where basically they're middle class, what I would call middle class. I don't know, they've got quite a sort of, a reasonable thing. They've lived all this life, with, TVs. They've had computers. They've had the internet. They've had things most of their lives. They access to cars, vehicles, everything, all the benefits of a capitalist system. Yet they call themselves socialists. And really, they don't seem to understand what socialism actually is, or what it means. And they think it's just being nice to people. I think I've got a few notes today, actually. They think socialism is kind and nice, and therefore, they think anybody who identifies as a capitalist must be bad, a fascist. So that's their perspective. But I've got to be honest with you. There are some capitalists who are bloody awful. I mean, really, really unpleasant people. But there are just as many real socialists that are just as awful and things. People are both good and bad, and people are awful and good, and they come in all shapes and sizes, and no two people are the same. Anyway, from where I'm talking about, because I haven't been to college. I haven't been to university. I haven't been there, but I've got absolutely zero education. But I did have, when I was 14. Say hello, Jude. I did have all the Liberals, the Labour, and the Conservatives knocking on my door, asking me if I could join them, because of my political sort of activities on the council estate, and. Saying, we think you actually a lot of things that you say and a lot of things that you espouse fit well with all our policies. I said, well, the Labour said that last night, and the Liberals said it the night before. Now the Conservatives are saying it. What's the difference between any of you? Are you all the same? And so I didn't bother joining any political party or anything like that. But right, I lived on a council estate as a kid. Okay, it's not going into detail. We had, but it was a 1960s built council estate. So there were lots of young families and lots of kids growing up there. I would say we're all the same age, and it was a great place, to be quite honest. I'm not gonna say it was terrible or anything. It was a fantastic place to grow up if you were a kid, because there was lots of other kids the same age, and there's lots of other things to do. Now, my particular situation was we did have my mother and father met in Butlins when my mother had gone on holiday, one of our few holidays on Butlins. My real father left when I was 3, and left my mother sort of fairly destitute, to be quite honest, with 2 kids. But she struggled on, and she did the best she could, and we got a holiday in Butlins in Minehead. And she met a man there called Tommy, who was absolutely turned out to be probably what you would say in the trade, a complete 100% diamond geezer. Excuse me there. A complete 100% diamond geezer. And we literally left Butlins and moved up to London, and we got this council house in South London with this chap who was possibly, I loved him. I grew to love this man more than life itself. Really, he was absolutely marvellous. He was a fantastic role model. Sadly, he died a couple of years later. He got a very, very aggressive cancer from his work. He got asbestosis, basically, and it killed him and all his work colleagues very, very quickly. And my mother and the kids were left on our own again. By this time, I was about 13. He died. We had about 4 years of bliss and happiness until he got this cancer, and then he was dead very, very quickly. Age 42, tragedy. Really, for him, really, really awful. I mean, and the good die young, and this man was a good man. Anyway, we were broke again. Now, on the council estate, there was different levels of poverty, basically, and we had the bangers over the road. They were called the bangers because their dad was a butcher, and they were money bags. We had the crows, and their dad was a taxi driver, and they were money bags. You know, so you see what I mean. The people who had proper professions and jobs were sort of like considered money bags, and then you had the poorer things, like, you know. But when my father died, I was sort of like poor again, and I didn't really like that. I actually didn't like that at all. Actually, the fact that, you know, being the poorest kid on the block is not. As a kid, your big thing at 13, it's very, very important. And things like clothes, Tesco Tads and things like that, which we used to call clothes for poor kids, you didn't want to know. So basically, I knew what my mother was earning, I knew what the rent cost, and I knew that there was no money to spare. So at 13, I needed to get some money. So I don't know where this idea came from. Well, it did. I know where it came from, actually, insofar as I was coming back from a football match. Believe it or not, I used to go to football matches sometimes with the kids on the train on a Saturday evening, and I noticed the papers were being thrown off at the train onto the platform, and there was this chap there just divvying them out to people to sort of send them off to different shops, so people could go and check. You know, it was the first paper printed, Evening Standard, and it was to sort of like check the pools. And I spoke to this chap, and I said, could you sell me 25 papers next week? If I come up here and buy them, would you? And he said, you are going to be here, aren't you? You are going to be here. And I said, yeah, I'm going to be here. Right, I said, I pay you now. Right, okay. And I couldn't pay him, to be quite honest, but I remember going round his house. He gave me his house, and I paid for them in the week. I got all my pennies and halfpennies together. The papers were a penny each. Okay, this is how much they were. So I had to get 25 pence. We'd just gone over to decimalisation at this time, and I had to get 25 pence, 25 new pennies actually at the time, and I gave it to him. And on the Saturday, I went up there, and I got 25 of these papers. And I went round the estate where I lived on, banging on all the doors, just saying, do you want a paper for the thing? And if you want one. And I sold the 25 papers like quite quickly, you know, really bang, 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 bang. And so I sold them for twopence each. You know where this is going. So I had 50p in my pocket. Okay, I had a bicycle, so I got a pannier on the back. I had a pannier on the back of the bicycle. I'll tell you another story. The reason why I had a pannier on the back of the bicycle, but that was because I used to go fishing as well. I used to like to go fishing. And so I got, basically the next week, I took that 50p and I said, could I have 2 quire a paper? And that's 50 papers. And that's quite a lot. It's quite a weight on the back of a bicycle. And I went round in the week, and I took people, houses that I didn't make it to. I knocked on, because I knew who was living there, and I knew the sort of people to knock on the house. Right, didn't have to knock on people who weren't that sort of people. So I went round, and I got another about 15 to 20 other papers sold. Okay, so I had about 35 papers sold, and there was a blocks of flats as well that I couldn't attack then, like, you know. So, but it needs to be to said, like, you know, the next week I went and sold 50 papers, and that gave me 50p. Now 50p back then was enough money for, you know, that 50 profit. Enough, 25p was enough profit, like, you know. Your school dinners were only 5p each at that time, so I had enough for school dinners, believe it or not, because we couldn't afford to buy school dinners. And the luncheon muncheons, I found it a little bit too much to go and get the free dinners, because my father had only not long died. We hadn't got the sort of level of, you know, sort of support that I could get free dinners yet, like anything. So I actually could go and buy dinners at school when I did go to school. Stopped going to school very shortly afterwards, actually. But needless to say, I actually that grew. I got a little trailer that I built for my bike, and so I could just chuck the papers on the back of in the box in the trailer. So and I ended up with 3 quire papers. That was 75 papers, and I could get round and people could check their pools. They didn't have to walk all the way to the shops to get the paper. They got the paper, and people would start giving me little tips and things like that for doing it. And I became possibly the wealthiest kid on the estate. I said to my mother, "You don't have to buy me any more clothes. That's it," because the clothes she bought me I refused to wear anyway. "You don't have to buy me any more clothes, and I will basically sort myself out." And I gave her money towards the housekeeping as well. And that was my thing. I didn't know, I just didn't think anything I was doing, but basically that was my first foray into capitalism. And that helped me, right, okay? And that is one of the good, you can actually buy and sell, okay? My father, the one who died, actually, couple of things he said to me, one of the things he said, "Money doesn't buy you happiness, but on the other hand, neither does poverty." And another one, he said, "There are only 2 types of people in this world, those who do and those who don't." Okay? So basically, I was poor, we were poor, and I met a girlfriend who was incredibly wealthy, and we met people incredibly wealthy, but I didn't feel envious about their wealth or anything like that. I didn't really care about their money. What I wanted to do, as long as I had enough for me, and I had enough to spend, and I had enough to do, and I could do that, I didn't care how rich other people were. I don't care. I didn't like being the poorest kid on the block or anything like that, because I couldn't do anything. There was a short period where I had no money, no nothing, so everybody's going off, they're going to football matches, they're going swimming, they're doing things, going to the youth club, and I couldn't afford to do any of it because I didn't have any money. So that peeved me off, really. So it was sort of like for the life, right, okay. Now, socialism, I was brought up around socialism, like all the time, and it's a lovely idea. It's a very, 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 how would you say the idea? It's an idea that, the equality, if we were all equal, it's a noble idea. Okay, it's a noble aim to be everybody to be equal, but it's an impossibility because no 2 people are equal. Nothing is equal in this world. Nothing is equal in this universe. I mean, it's an impossible. It doesn't exist. I mean, if you give 2 people exactly the same opportunities. Okay, life, the universe, and everything like that. But if they're 2 people with fairly similar motivation, fairly similar IQ, fairly similar education, okay, they will start off in life and give them exactly the same. They will not be the same at the end. Just won't be, because basically, life, the universe comes into it. It comes into it. There are things. Monopoly. There's a perfect example. The game Monopoly. You all start off with the same thing and the same thing, and basically, I mean, Monopoly was designed to show that capitalism is a terrible idea, and all the money will dissolve into one person, things like that, But capitalism is not that simple. Actually, it was a way of describing how bad capitalism is. Like, it turned out to end up being a really fun board game. But, basically what happens, the longer you play, just basically one person ends up with everything and everybody else ends up with nothing. Now, capitalism can actually go to that. And one of the problems we have at the moment is the difference between the haves and the have-not is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that sort of leads to the have-nots getting really, really but then you've got the politics of envy come in. It's the politics of envy, like, the socialism. But the one thing if we lived in a socialist, one of these people, like these middle-class people, this is to these middle-class kids, if we did live in a socialist society, okay, you would be poor. Because basically everybody is poor. If you take everything in the world and you spread it equally through everybody, everybody is poor. Okay? Nobody's rich. Okay? There is no mobility. You have got no escape. You can't become a boxer a footballer, or there is no working class or high class model if you're a girl and things like that. There is no working class escape. You are stuck in the working class. There's no potential improvement within a socialist thing. Only within the party and within politics can you socially climb then, like, you know, because there's no such thing as equality, even in a socialist sort of thing. Okay? And there's no incentive to strive. So it's a sponger's paradise, really. And there is no incentive to be educated, there's no incentive to do it, because you can work hard your whole life and you're still going to be in exactly the same position you are when you start. At least with capitalism, you can actually, you have got a possibility, you have got a chance. I mean, the fate, the wind and all that lot comes in, you know, Voltaire and all that. We are riding on a sea of fate, but we are actually to some degree. But yeah, as long as the fates are with you, you can actually get somewhere. You can actually get somewhere. You can go and buy some papers from the station and sell it, and have the best bike and the best jeans and the best Levi stay press and a Crombie and everything like that. Like and everything like that. There it goes. You can do that, but within a socialist system, there is no escape. Yeah, and I know it sounds lovely, and it's seductive to think of, oh yes, wouldn't it lovely if we were all equal? Yeah, but we're not, and we never will be. I hope I haven't sort of like bored the pants off you. Well, if I bored the pants off you, you're not there. If you have enjoyed this, actually, do like and subscribe. I'm not trying to run a channel for money or anything like that, because I'm way too old and far too much effort. I just would like to say, like, you know, socialism versus capitalism. Capitalism is not perfect, but socialism is really, really wrong. There is something called Georgian socialism, which is an American chap that basically sort of was advocating that just run on a capitalist system, okay, but there was no land ownership. All land was common. I'm trying to work my head around it and everything like that. I've been thinking about it, actually, to be quite honest, quite a lot. It could be a very, very good level, and it could, if you had something like that, it might actually stem the the difference that you get when people become, because the Pareto principle, you know, means that, you know, 80% of the wealth is held by 20% of the people, or 80% of the people live in 20% of the locations, i.e. cities and things like that. It's a natural principle that seems to run through nature, human endeavour and everything like that. And also you have the Pareto, socialism is not devoid of the Pareto principle. It actually in fact it's exactly the same. Because you know, you have the Politburo in the Soviet Union, like, you know, they had the summer holiday places, they had the best things because they were the party, you know, whereas the hoi polloi was stuck down in the poor thing, like, you know. And basically, and beware of socialism coming in, beware of the Corbynites and the Marxisms, beware, really, really seriously dangerous, because look what happened, study what happened in Soviet Russia, study what happened in China, study what happened in Cambodia. All places within, and have a look at more recently what happened, if you can find out what more recently happened in Venezuela recently. We're being hit, you know, they're hiding it. It's not good. Yeah. And if you come from a middle class background, you won't be saved just because you call yourself a socialist. Take care, people. Strive forth, and remember, hard work pays off in the end, honestly. Good. Use your brain, use your nod, and live off your wits. You'll be fine. Cheers.